What if the most controversial man in football was never wrong? What if the world misunderstood his warnings and celebrated the consequences instead? Tonight, we reopen a case football thought was closed, because hidden inside the greatest career of all time is a truth only one man dared to say out loud. José Mourinho versus Lionel Messi. This is not a rivalry. This is a prophecy. Breaking news in world football, a story buried under trophies, Ballon d'Ors, and highlight reels is resurfacing. For more than a decade, José Mourinho was portrayed as the villain, a man obsessed, bitter, defensive. But today, as football enters a new era of control, systems, and efficiency, his words are beginning to sound less like criticism and more like warning signs. Because Mourinho was never talking about Messi the player. He was talking about Messi the system. And football was never ready to listen. Lionel Messi didn't arrive in football like a storm. He arrived like a whisper. No arrogance, no noise, no rebellion. While other prodigies demanded attention, Messi avoided it. He let the ball speak, softly at first, then loudly enough to shake the sport itself. From the moment he stepped onto Barcelona's pitch, it was clear this wasn't just talent. This was alignment. The club understood him. The system protected him. The city embraced him. Barcelona didn't ask Messi to adapt to football. Football adapted to Messi. Teammates ran so he wouldn't have to. Fullbacks held the width so he could drift inside. Midfielders absorbed pressure so he could receive the ball in silence. Over time, this wasn't seen as favoritism. It was seen as destiny. Guardiola refined it into art. Xavi and Iniesta turned it into rhythm, and Messi turned it into inevitability. Goals stopped feeling like moments. They became expectations. Every touch carried meaning. Every dribble felt pre-written. And because Messi didn't shout, boast, or provoke, the world crowned him football's perfect hero, the anti-celebrity, the silent genius, the proof that purity could still exist at the highest level of the game. But perfection creates blind spots. And while the world watched the magic, one man was studying the machinery behind it. Not the goals, not the assists, the protection. And his name was José Mourinho. José Mourinho never fit the story football wanted to tell. Where others spoke about beauty, he spoke about control. Where others praised harmony, he pointed out imbalance. And when Messi rose to the center of the football universe, Mourinho refused to worship. That refusal alone made him dangerous because Mourinho never questioned Messi's talent, not once. What he questioned was the price football was paying for protecting it. In Mourinho's eyes, the game was slowly shifting. Teams were no longer built as equals. They were built as sacrifices. Systems bent. Roles disappeared. Defensive responsibility became optional, but only for one man. Mourinho believed football was a contract. 11 players give everything. Everyone suffers. Everyone bleeds. And when one player is exempt from that contract, the entire structure changes. This wasn't jealousy. It was philosophy. Mourinho had built champions with discipline, pain, and collective responsibility. Porto, Chelsea, Inter. His teams survived because no one was above the system. Messi represented the opposite truth. A player so extraordinary that the system served him. To the public, that was genius. To Mourinho, it was imbalance disguised as beauty. And when he spoke about it openly, when he dared to say that Messi benefited from protection others didn't receive, football recoiled. Mourinho became the villain, bitter, paranoid, anti-football. But behind closed doors, managers were listening. Because Mourinho wasn't asking how to stop Messi. He was asking a far more uncomfortable question. What happens to football when one player becomes untouchable? Between 2010 and 2013, football stopped being a game. It became a psychological war. On one side stood Barcelona, possession, movement, geometry, control. On the other stood Real Madrid, speed, aggression, structure, confrontation. Guardiola wanted the ball forever. Mourinho wanted it only when it mattered. Every Clásico felt like a referendum on football itself. Messi drifted between the lines, untouched, protected by rhythm and referees. Mourinho responded with disruption, pressing traps, tactical fouls, narrow blocks, relentless physical contact, not to injure, but to disturb. Mourinho didn't believe Messi could be stopped. He believed Messi could be made uncomfortable. And for the first time, the world saw Messi forced to suffer. Not because he was weak, but because the system around him was being attacked. The games turned ugly, red cards, touchline fights, press conference explosions. Mourinho absorbed the hate. Because every second the world talked about him was one less second talking about the cracks in the system. He sacrificed his image to protect his idea. And football never forgave him for it. Mourinho once said something football didn't want to hear, that Messi was not judged by the same standards as everyone else. No tracking back, no pressing triggers, no defensive punishment. Others called it freedom. Mourinho called it exemption. In his philosophy, suffering was part of greatness. You defend when the team defends. You run when the team runs. And if you don't, someone else pays the price. Barcelona accepted that price. And because they won, nobody questioned the cost. But Mourinho understood something deeper. Systems age, legs tire, rhythm fades. And when the protection disappears, reality arrives all at once. This wasn't an attack on Messi. It was a warning about what happens after perfection ends. Then Messi left. For the first time in his career, the system didn't belong to him. Paris Saint-Germain was not Barcelona. There was no shared rhythm, no collective memory, no automatic sacrifice. Messi was still brilliant, but the immunity was gone. Defenders didn't hesitate. Teammates didn't orbit him. Expectations turned heavy. The magic flickered instead of flowing. And critics returned, louder than ever. But something else was happening quietly. With Argentina, Messi accepted a different role. He didn't demand protection. He earned loyalty. Argentina didn't free Messi from suffering. They suffered with him. Everyone ran. Everyone fought. Everyone defended. And when Messi lifted the World Cup, it wasn't because the system protected him. It was because the team embraced Mourinho's truth. Collective sacrifice creates freedom. Then Messi left. For the first time in his career, the system didn't belong to him. Paris Saint-Germain was not Barcelona. There was no shared rhythm, no collective memory, no automatic sacrifice. Messi was still brilliant, but the immunity was gone. Defenders didn't hesitate. Teammates didn't orbit him. Expectations turned heavy. The magic flickered instead of flowing. And critics returned, louder than ever. But something else was happening quietly. With Argentina, Messi accepted a different role. He didn't demand protection. He earned loyalty. Argentina didn't free Messi from suffering. They suffered with him. Everyone ran. Everyone fought. Everyone defended. And when Messi lifted the World Cup, it wasn't because the system protected him. It was because the team embraced Mourinho's truth. Collective sacrifice creates freedom. Time has a strange way of softening villains. As football evolved, Mourinho's ideas stopped sounding extreme. Pressing became mandatory. Structure became sacred. Systems became kings. Even modern superstars were asked to defend. What once sounded bitter now sounded practical. Mourinho didn't lose because he was wrong. He lost because he spoke before football was ready, and Messi didn't disprove him. He completed the argument. Greatness survives when it adapts. Untouchable myths do not. José Mourinho never hated Lionel Messi. He respected him enough to tell the truth. A truth football didn't want to hear. Messi was never the problem. The idea that greatness shouldn't suffer was. Today, football looks more Mourinho than ever. And Messi's greatest triumph came when he embraced that reality. This was never a rivalry. It was a prophecy. And history has finally caught up.